The church basement. I spent the majority of my junior year of high school working as a janitor for a local church in the city. While I'll leave the church unnamed, I can tell you it's a very old church. Old enough to the point where most of the facilities, plumbing, air conditioning, etc., were installed after the place was first built. I've never even gotten a straight answer on how old the building is, and it seems that no one on the staff is old enough to have been alive when it was built. The oldest person that works there is the other janitor, Harry. Every time I asked him how old the building is, he always just tells me it's older than him. He also loved to tell me ghost stories about the building, that it was built on burial grounds and other spooky shit. I've done as much research as I can on the place, and I can tell you with most certainty that it was not built on any kind of burial ground or cemetery. But with all the research I've done, I still haven't found an explanation for what happened. While I was employed at the church, my main job was to clean up at the end of the day, along with Harry. Difference being, Harry cleaned the main floor, and I had to clean the basement. The basement of the church consisted of a furnace room and a long hallway lined with children's classrooms on either side. At one end of the hallway were the stairs, and the other end led to the furnace room. Let's just say the walls were less than soundproof, so when the furnace was running, it got pretty damn loud in the hallway. The worst part about the hallway was that when the electric lights were installed, some genius thought it was a great idea to put the only switch by the furnace room on the opposite end of the hall from the stairs. It was in the middle of December, so the sun set around 6:30. I cleaned the basement at 8. The only windows were really small ones at the top of the walls in the classrooms, level with the ground outside. They were rarely cleaned, so even if it was still light out, not much sunlight would come in. But occasionally, a passing car's headlights would shine in at night. Every Sunday, I went from classroom to classroom cleaning up any mess that had been left behind, swept the hallway, and checked up on the furnace. This particular night had taken longer than usual, because a kid got a bloody nose in one of the classrooms, and I had the wonderful job of cleaning the stain out of the rug. I normally got done cleaning around 9, but because of the bloody rug, I was done around 9:45. When I was done cleaning, I locked the classrooms, made sure the furnace was running, as if the loud rumbling noise wasn't evidence enough, and was ready to turn the lights off. A month or so back, I had devised a way to turning the lights off from the opposite end of the hall so I didn't have to walk, or often run, through the darkness. I got a really long piece of string and tied a loop at the end that I could hook onto the light switch and pull from the other end of the hallway. It worked pretty well for the most part, but not this time. I had the string looped onto the switch, ready to pull it from the bottom of the stairs. As I pulled it and the lights turned off, something strange happened. Right as the hallway went dark, the furnace turned off. I was submerged in complete silence, and I got a bit startled at the sudden lack of noise. I mumbled a few expletives under my breath as I assumed the furnace had gotten fucked up somehow. I ran through all the reasons the furnace could have gone out in my mind and decided that some circuit had blown or something from the lights being turned off. I wasn't much of an electrician, so that was the most logical thing I thought of. The electricity in the building was pretty shitty and cheap anyway. I started to pull the string back, but it went taut and wouldn't budge. I assumed it got caught on the switch, which I thought was weird because it had never gotten stuck before. I'd been using that trick for at least a month, and had never had a problem with the string getting caught, and had especially never had the furnace turn off because of it. I pulled on the string a little harder to try and pull it loose. It gave for a second, then tightened again. Confused, I pulled it slower. It raised and lowered a bit as I pulled it, as if someone was holding the other end. I felt my heart drop into my stomach and was paralyzed for a bit before I came to my senses. I dropped the string and backed towards the door to the stairs, feeling for the doorknob behind me. As I felt the doorknob, I glanced down at the string and saw that it was noticeably farther away from where I dropped it. Then I witnessed it jerk away even more. It was then that I was certain someone was holding the other end. I wasn't alone in the basement. I looked back, dreading what I might see. For a second, seeing nothing but darkness. Then I heard a car approach the building, and its headlights pierced the darkness and illuminated what I hoped not to see. A gray figure dressed in raggy brown clothes with dark hair that looked like dried seaweed covering most of his face. He had been looking down at the string that he was gathering in his hand, but right as the hall lit up, he looked at me with a harsh scowl and a look of hate I will never forget. As the car moved away and the light began to disappear, the last thing I saw was that thing starting to move towards me. I opened the door behind me and bolted up the stairs, moving faster than I thought I could. I fumbled for my keys the whole way up so I could lock the door at the top. As soon as I reached the top, I heard the door open at the bottom of the stairwell. I slammed the door, locked it, and started to run out the building. I stopped when I noticed Harry cleaning one of the pews and turned towards him. He asked me what was wrong, and I told him there was someone downstairs and that we needed to leave as soon as possible. We both turned towards the door to the basement as we heard the door rattle. Whatever had been in the basement was at the top of the stairs trying to get to us. I was glad that I had locked the door. The thing tried to open it a few times before seemingly giving up. All Harry and I could do was stare, wondering what would happen. Then the door started to shake violently as the thing desperately tried to get through. It yanked and pulled hard on the knob with one hand and banged on the door with the other in some effort to break it. Harry and I darted towards the entrance to the building, not looking back until we were closing the front door. As we were shutting the door, I got one last look into the building. I heard the crunch of wood breaking and saw the thing emerge into the main hall from the basement door. Harry and I slammed the front door, locked it, and ran. We weren't sure where we were running or where we were trying to go, but we kept running until we couldn't feel our feet. We found a restaurant that was open and asked to use the phone. They asked what had happened, and we just told them we needed to call the police. They obliged, and the police arrived within a few minutes. Harry and I told them what had happened at the church, and they gave us a ride back, assuring our safety. We were asked to wait in the police cruiser while they checked the building. After about 10 minutes of waiting, they came back and said they didn't find anything or anyone, but the knob had been ripped off the basement door. They brought us inside to see for ourselves that no one was there. Sure enough, the basement door was agape, and the knob had been broken out of its place and left on the floor, surrounded by splinters. I asked an officer if they had searched the basement, and he said that they had. I asked if I could go back down and if one of them would come with me. The officer agreed, and he led me slowly down the stairs. As we approached the bottom, I noticed that the hallway light was on. I asked the officer if he had turned it on, and he said that it was already on when he searched the basement. I immediately felt even more uneasy than before and slowed down. The officer noticed and asked if I was okay. I told him that I was fine, and I kept going. I tried to reassure myself that everything was fine, that whatever had been down there was gone. When we reached the bottom, I noticed that one of the classrooms at the end of the hall was open, and the light was on. I asked the officer if he had opened it. He said no, it was locked, and the light was off when he searched earlier. He took out his pistol and walked cautiously towards the room, and I stayed close behind him, looking over my shoulder every now and then and keeping an eye on the other classroom doors. As he got closer to the door, he moved slower and slower until he finally reached the room. He held his gun, ready to shoot anything and anyone that was in that room, and peered inside. There was no one there. At first we thought there was nothing, but we felt a cool breeze and heard cars. We both noticed that the window at the top of the wall was broken. As I looked down from the window, I noticed something else. Bundled up on the floor below the window was my string.